Hello and everybody, and welcome to this LIBER webinar. LIBER is the Association of European Research Libraries with about 420 members. The webinar today is co-organized by SCOSS, the Global Sustainability Coalition for Open Science Services, and is called Building a Sustainable Future for Open Science meets SCOSS latest endorsed infrastructures. My name is Olaf Siegert. I work at the ZBW Leibniz Information Center for Economics in Hamburg, Germany. And I am also the co-chair of the LIBER Open Access Working Group, and in this role I am chairing today's webinar. Some organizational issues before we start. First of all, this webinar will be recorded and made available afterwards on the LIBER YouTube channel, presumably about next week. Second, as you know from most of these larger webinars, please keep your microphones muted and add your questions and comments in the chat. You can add them already during the presentations, but we will answer them collectively in the Q&A at the end of the webinar. And last but not least, please respect the LIBER Code of Conduct and ensure a safe and open atmosphere for everyone. Now, after these housekeeping rules, to the topic of today's webinar. First of all, we are happy that almost 70 people have registered, so it will be quite a large group here. And as you know, the open science movement depends on strong, sustainable infrastructures. A lot of them are organized as non-commercial scholar-led services with the aim of a sustainable business model. How can the library community support these infrastructures to provide their services in a non-commercial way? This is a common issue for both SCOSS and LIBER. With the webinar today, we aim to introduce SCOSS to the LIBER community and highlight its role in supporting open science. We also want to showcase examples of some SCOSS-endorsed infrastructures. Representatives from each initiative will share their concept and their impact. This 60-minute webinar is organized as follows, as you can already see a bit on the slide. So first we hear an overall presentation on SCOSS itself and how it works, followed by examples of 4 open infrastructures, and these are African Journals Online, Episciences, Make Data Count, and SciPost. After the presentations, we will have time to discuss your feedback and questions. And now, after I have stopped my presentation, I will hand over to Rosalie, who is the SCOSS coordinator for the first presentation. Rosalie, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Olaf. And also thank you to LIBER for hosting this webinar today. Really appreciate it. And it's a great opportunity to collaborate. Thank you. So let me just go into slide. Okay, wonderful. So I am Rosalie. I'm the SCOSS coordinator. And I think many of you may already be familiar with SCOSS, but I'm just going to give a quick overview for those who may not be. So SCOSS is here to help sustain vital, essential, non-commercial open infrastructures that support the implementation of open science. As we all know that open science is built on open infrastructure. So the two are linked together. So the way that the SCOSS model works is sort of a two-prong approach. The first is that we endorse infrastructures for investment, and then we also facilitate these infrastructures that we've endorsed with a different a set of support systems. So first of all, the endorsing infrastructures, that works that each year we select 2 to 4 infrastructures that we have deemed to be essential. And they go through a really rigorous selection process. We're looking at them in what we talk as a 360 review. That we're looking at their finances, we're looking at how globally they're being used, if they're community driven, what their strategic plans look like. So really looking at all parts of the infrastructure and then selecting 2 to 4 each year to endorse them and to help them to get funding and become more sustainable. So the model is that we work with consortia, individual institutions, researchers, as you see in the image, to fund directly to the infrastructure. So we don't get involved in that relationship directly. The funding goes directly from the funders to the infrastructures, with the idea that this model is how these infrastructures will move toward long-term sustainability. And I'll talk a little bit about the second prong in a moment. So these are all the infrastructures that have been endorsed by SCOSS, and we call them the SCOSS family, and now they are 19 strong. So if there's any here you're not familiar with, I highly recommend Googling and looking them up. They are all doing amazing work and all in need of support and promotion. So what does it mean to be SCOSS endorsed? As I said, they have to be non-commercial, open infrastructure. They have been rigorously evaluated and selected. They are essential to the open science ecosystem. They're globally recognized, widely used, community-driven, and they have transparent governance and accountability. So these are really sort of the characteristics of these infrastructures that we choose. And so you can be sure when you see the SCOSS endorsement on them that they are really following these criteria and support these criteria. And as I said earlier, there's sort of a two-prong approach. So the second part of what SCOSS does is we have this community of practice that is now 19 strong, and we're working on a lot of different initiatives that are really a lot focused on supporting the infrastructures, but also on capacity building, helping them in not just in a monetary way to become more sustainable, but also organizationally to become more sustainable. So for example, we have a directors network where the directors of the organizations can meet to have knowledge exchange and the shared challenges of running open infrastructures in this environment that we're in, for example. And just to take a step back up, I want everyone to think about how open infrastructures they're not just a tool, they're really a commitment to a shared purpose and a long-term impact. So, but they're really an investment in our future and the future of our institutions. It isn't just a one-time transaction. It's really an investment and a long-term commitment to open infrastructure and open science. And some of the benefits that come with it are it's affordable by design. We'll talk a little bit about that with some of our infrastructures today. How you can avoid the rising costs of commercial subscriptions through open infrastructure. They are aligned with your university values. They support knowledge sharing and good governance and things that are important to your values. They are community driven. They engage with their community when they're making decisions about enhancements. And by design also, they are interoperable because they work on with open standards, but they're also developing open standards to make themselves more interoperable with each other. And that's part of what drives them. So you'll hear today about the 4 newly launched 6 funding cycle. That's going to be African Journals Online, Episciences, Make Data Count, and SciPost. So you'll hear more about them. So I'm going to move past this slide. And then I'm asking that please, if you could, after you've looked at these infrastructures and made a decision if your institution can financially support these infrastructures, if you could fill out this questionnaire, and I say 3-minute, but it's probably really just a 1-minute questionnaire actually. So if you could share with us why you have supported one of them or why you're not able to support. So, because we're really trying to understand the picture of what are the barriers to support, but also if people do support, what are their motivations? So we will share this link in the chat and it'll be on the slides later. So I hope that you will take just a moment to help us gather some data about that. And finally, I want to also promote that we're talking about funding here, but there's many ways to support these infrastructures. You can also advocate for them on your, whether with your decision makers, or if you are a fiscal decision maker, you can be making decisions about how to rethink your funding and how to support open access and open infrastructures. You can also consider maybe joining a working group or joining a board. promoting the visibility of these infrastructures, maybe holding a session at your institution to introduce these infrastructures to your colleagues, and thinking about ways to support standards building for these infrastructures. So there's many ways to contribute. Funding, of course, is great, but also think about promoting and joining these infrastructures to build a more robust system that everyone's supporting. So thank you on that point. It's my contact info. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. And I think we are just going to move. I'm going to stop there in that lightning speed talk. And our first speaker is going to be from the African Journals Online. Unfortunately, she's unable to join us today from circumstances out of her control. So I will show a video. And so I'm going to stop sharing this and then share again. Okay, so this is to introduce you to African Journals Online, who are doing amazing work. I'm happy to share with you.
African Journals Online is a Pan-African nonprofit organization. We provide a journal indexing and hosting platform based on free and open source software. AJOL makes it feasible for standalone journals to become open access. We provide training and capacity building support. And we amplify African voices in the global discourse on equity and scholarly communications. We promote the openness of African research content, as well as the link between investment in higher education and economic development, and contextually relevant solutions to real-world problems. There are over 800 journals published from 39 countries on the platform. Most of these are non-profit, subject-specific, expert-led, not publishing professionals. 80% of the full text is open access, but all publishing models are allowed on AJOL, as this makes it easier for closed access titles to move to more open types, and eventually to no fee or diamond open access. There are millions of full text downloads each month from all over the world from AJOL, and 50% of the repeat site users are from within Africa. The Journal Publishing Practices and Standards Framework is used for quality assessment of each applicant journal. There is a long waiting list of such journals, and also as a learning tool for ongoing partners to improve their practices. Most of the world's low-income countries are in the region AJOL works to support. AJOL is a science common already as a developing country regional journal platform, but we require assistance in terms of financial sustainability to continue meeting the current and increasing demand for our services. An appeal via SCOSS from the small but mighty African nonprofit organization is to please tangibly assist in supporting AJOL's work. There is a link to do so on our website. Many thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. I never want to stop that before the music. So, and I'm always just amazed every time I watch, when I watch that or I talk with them, that 800 journals from 39 countries. It doesn't get more impressive than that. So, all right, on that note of impressive, let's turn to Raphaël from Episciences. Thank you.
Hi everyone, sorry. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. So thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about Episciences overlay journals. Episciences is one of the 3 platforms operated by my research unit CCSD in France. We are operating the AJOL Open Archive and also ScienceConf, a platform to organize scientific events. So Episciences is a publishing platform, but dedicated to overlay journals. We welcome journals from any disciplines, any country, any language. We have journals from Australia, from Europe, from the US, etc. So we welcome also journals from either new journals or flipping journals. Our publishing model is based on green open access and diamond open access. We only accept diamond open access publishing journals. We provide a complete publishing toolkit for the scientific communities. We're not a publisher, we are a publishing platform. So we provide free hosting, technical, and editorial services to the journal teams. Our components are also available as free software, and the platform is academic-led and academic funded. So this is a quick overview of our publishing model based on preprint software or datasets as a source of publishing. We welcome those type of input types. So we are connected with different open archives such as Archive, AL, Zenodo, ByArchive, MedArchive. We also connections with Software Heritage and any data-powered data repository. The process starts with a preprint, for instance, hosted on a compatible repository. Then the preprint can be ingested automatically to the journal. The overlay journal will just do the review process, of course, and there can be multiple rounds of peer review. It's either single blind review or open peer review, depending on the choice of the journal. At the end of the process, if the article is accepted, it will be edited and receive a copy edited version, and the latest version will also be published on the repository. So everything starts on the repository and ends on the repository. Every published article is hosted by a repository, not by the journal. So if we see that from the point of view of overlay journals, we are mainly responsible for the certification and dissemination process, whereas the registration and archiving is handled by the open repositories. So this allows us to have a cost-efficient publishing model. We are mainly publishing journals from informatics and applied mathematics, and also mathematics and social sciences and humanities. And we are opening to new disciplines such as biomechanics, physics, and F sciences. Our more recent addition to our catalog of journal is a new type of journal that will publish data papers and software papers while handling data sets and software also. Most of the content of overlay journals is actually hosted by Archive. Then the other type of content is hosted by AL. And the third repository represented is Zenodo because it's the most recent addition to our portfolio of supported repositories. So this is an example of several versions that are submitted on the left to unavailable journals, and on the right are the versions that are available on the archive. You can see that there are 10 versions on archive, and only a few have been submitted to the overlay journals. So every new version has to be submitted online, and you can track the differences between the versions from the first versions to the latest published versions. When we publish, we will only publish one specific version. So on the left, you can see an example of a web page of a published article. If you click on download this file, the file will be downloaded not from the journal, but from the open repository. In this case, this article is hosted by the AL repository. So every time someone clicks on download this file, it's downloaded from the repository, not from the journal. But from the point of view of the users, it's really transparent. When we publish, we will also, of course, update the metadata. On the right, this is the published article, and on the left, this is the version available on archive. You can see that we have added the journal reference, so the journal name, the DOI, the publication date, etc. It's the same, for instance, for another type of repository such as AL. You can see that the document type has been updated. Now it's a journal article. We will also add the DOI from the journal and, of course, the journal name. It's also really easy to link publications with software on Episciences. we advise the researchers to use software heritage to cite their software and reference them on Episciences published article. This is an example of a published article. On the bottom, you can see the software that is cited by the publication, and you can browse the software from within the context of the version that has been archived by software heritage. Of course, it's easy to link publications with data sets, and you can see that we can link a lot of our specific scientific artifact with published articles. So for instance, this published article can be linked with a preprint on archive. You can link with data sets hosted by a database repository. You can also establish a link with a software archived by software heritage. You can also post the open peer review, for instance, on AL and create a link with this. And you can also create links, for instance, with post-publication reviews, such as the one that are provided by the BMAT Open for the mathematics. And this is a quick sample, a quick overview of all the public infrastructures connected to Episciences. We are well connected, for instance, with the services of OpenAir, but also many open infrastructures are connected to Episciences. All the metadata that we create is also provided with a C0 license, thanks to a REST API and also an OAI PMH endpoint. With the support from SCOSS, we would like to improve our publishing platform that is at the service of the scientific communities. We would like to be able to handle more journals, including broadening our discipline coverage. For instance, having journals more from new disciplines on the platform. We also would like to advance our publishing tools, specifically to provide new publishing formats such as EPUBs, for instance. We also would like to connect to more institutional repositories to support more repositories connected to the platform so that researchers can select, for instance, the repository from their libraries to be able to publish on any overlay journals from Episciences. And we also would like to raise the awareness about overlay journals and the Episciences platform. Thank you for your attention. I will stop here.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Raphaël. I always just want to underline something there. This new model of overlay journals, or somewhat new, at least to me, I have to admit, that it can take you directly from the preprints to publication. It's really a wonderful new model, and Episcience is kind of leading the way in this area, and so we're very excited to have them among the SCOSS family members. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's turn now to make data count. Iratxe.
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much, Rosalie. Thank you to LIBER for hosting us today. Let me just put up my slides. 1 second. And hopefully this will be showing up shortly. Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. Right, so I'm going to be talking about the infrastructure for data usage that make data count works on, but just as a brief introduction as to where we fit within the data ecosystem. There's been, of course, a lot of progress in open data over the last few years, which is fantastic. And as we have more and more open data sets, we believe that it is also important that we start turning our attention as to what happens with data sets after they are shared. And this is important so that we continue to build the evidence that can inform policy development and resource allocation for our data programs. So we have to start thinking about questions like who's using data and for what purposes as part of research and policy. The ecosystem where we are now, there's been a lot of progress in infrastructure for depositing and sharing data, but we still have some challenges around understanding what happens to those data sets afterwards. This is for a number of reasons. Data usage information is not yet comprehensive. It's often closed or siloed. We have developed workflows that help us understand some of the interactions with data sets, but not the full range of interactions that can take place. Data sets are more nuanced in many respects compared to journal publications, for example. And importantly, we need to think about capturing usage indicators, but also adding to that the standards and context that really help us interpret that usage information and make it usable for different evaluators. So this is the space that Make Data Count works in, and the practices that we aim to support. We develop open infrastructure for data usage to help the community get the information that they need to fund that policy development for data, support research reproducibility, and advanced recognition for data contributions as primary research outputs. The way in which we work is that we think it is important to work at on all of the steps, from the collection of usage information all the way to standardization, aggregation, and sharing of that with the community. So we have developed workflows that are used by repositories, data platforms, and also journals to collect information about interactions and use of data, and then also to be able to standardize this across different, again, repositories and platforms. And this happens mostly through workflows, again, developed through Make Data Count, that are deployed at repositories or data platforms. And then the other side of this process is that we believe that in order to feed this information into evaluation processes, for example, by institutions or funders, we need to have that those usage indicators aggregated and shared with the community, so that, again, the different users can feed them into the processes. And we have also developed workflows and tools to, again, aggregate those indicators that have been collected by different platforms and share them with the community. This is deployed specifically through DataSite that has a data store where this information can be stored, and we make that information and that metadata available through DataSite workflows. This enables that to remain open through open licenses, but also to be fed into the research information workflows that connect data usage to other information we have about research activities and outputs. Make Data Count has done a lot of work in terms of building workflows and infrastructure, specifically over the last few years for collecting and, again, sharing data citations, data views, and downloads. Again, this is information that is collected through repositories, data platforms, journals, and then we aggregate and share that through a number of services deployed at DataSite. This is an example, for example, through the DataSite Commons portal that provides information about data sets as well as other works. But specifically for data sets, it will provide information about citations, views, and downloads that are available through that common data store. The same information is also available through DataSite APIs. As I mentioned at the beginning, we believe that it is important to look beyond just usage counts and usage indicators to also have standards that help us normalize those indicators. And a key milestone for Make Data Count was the development of the Code of Practice for Research Data that was co-developed with Counter. And this is a framework that allows different repositories and platforms to have that transparency and consistency as to how they process the usage counts that they are collecting and how they share that for aggregation. So making sure that those counts, even though they are collected at different platforms, they can be compared and interpreted across those platforms, and again, aggregated through our common data store. We believe that those workflows have been very powerful and useful in giving us information about data usage, but we also know that we don't have yet the full picture about the usage of data sets, and a lot of the focus on our current projects relates to scaling that information that we can collect and make accessible to the community. A key piece within this is our project to develop the data citation corpus as a large-scale open aggregate of citations to data sets. This is built on two key pillars. One is community collaboration, working with different groups, infrastructures, and initiatives that are already putting work to identify citations to data sets, make connections between data sets and articles, for example. So we want to work with them so that they can contribute to this common community aggregate of citations, give more visibility to those citations they have identified, and continue adding to this common community resource. The other aspect has a technical perspective. We are aiming for this corpus to bring together citations to data sets identified through different methodologies and finding a framework again that allows that consistent aggregation. At the moment, what we are doing is trying to take a very broad scope, bring citations identified through different methodologies, through the metadata for persistent identifiers, but also citations identified through machine learning by applying algorithms that can do full text mining of articles that identify mentions to data sets that way. It's a way of surfacing that usage that we know exists, but was not getting captured through earlier workflows. And we hope that this will be a resource that really will provide key insights into data usage and impact for institutions as well as libraries. And this is something that we have explored through a recent collaboration with librarians at 2 institutions in the US, Northwestern University and the University of Colorado Boulder, where we completed an analysis of citations to data sets associated with the universities looking open aggregates such as the data citation corpus. We looked at this in a number of ways, just to understand better the data citation trends over time, and also what were the repositories that hosted those data sets that where we were seeing more usage for those institutions. And this highlighted the high level of usage for data sets related to protein structure and genetic sequences. Although this was to be expected, we have a big representation of life sciences in the corpus. But it also gave us an opportunity to explore what are data-intensive research areas at those institutions, but by going deeper into the disciplinary focus of the articles that were citing those data. So this is just an example of some of the insights that can be collected already today, but we know we need to go deeper. There are more questions that libraries and institutions have about data usage and impact, and this is part of our future work, expanding the coverage of the corpus and the metadata that it holds. Again, we are here today because we are participating in the current cycle of the SCOSS program, and we are very appreciative of SCOSS for recognizing Make Data Count as essential open infrastructure. With this support, as I mentioned, we will continue enhancing our existing infrastructure, but we also want to think about new ways to capture measures of usage beyond citations, views, and downloads. And we also want to continue our ongoing steps to engage with global communities around data evaluation practices and what are their needs and how can we build tools that are also relevant for them. There are a number of ways to engage with Make Data Count. One is, of course, that institutions can financially pledge support for us, and we have information on our website around this, but there are other ways in which we would really value your input and feedback. For example, we have an ongoing working group in collaboration with Helios Open looking at developing resources for data evaluation at institutions. And we would love to hear from you if you have resources that you're using at your institution or success stories, or just hear what you need in terms of data usage to help us further develop the tools to make those relevant to you. And with that further information in our website, thank you so much for listening, and look forward to the comments and questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Iratxe, for that overview. And that was new information, that the study with the 2 universities. So that's really an interesting development. And also just the work that you're doing in the bigger picture of research assessment. So keep that in mind as an essential part of research assessment is the use of data sets. And it's great how Make Data Count is taking the lead in that. Thank you. So we are, this is the rapid fire presentation here. So as you realize, we're just giving you broad overviews of each of these infrastructures. Always be thinking of any questions you may have for them, and you can always reach out to them after this presentation. They welcome one-on-one conversations to learn more about their infrastructures. So last but not least, we'll move to SciPost, Jean-Sébastien.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just try to share. It should. It was working before. Oh, there you go. Okay. Okay, I hope you can see my screen properly. Yeah, so
Yeah,
a great
thanks.
pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot for attending this this meeting. So I've got like 8 minutes to tell you a little bit about SciPost, what it is, and where we're at. Let's get going. SciPost is best understood based on the principles on which it's built. Essentially, it's a grassroots initiative from academics. I mean, I'm a professional researcher myself. My day job is still professor of theoretical physics at the University of Amsterdam. And I was involved in publishing at many levels throughout my career, first as author, referee, then as editor for many, many years. And throughout those many years, I developed a number of, say, disappointments and frustrations with the existing system. And at some point about 10 years ago, I thought to myself, well, things are not really changing. Despite all the calls for reform of all of this, it's not really happening because the interests of the academics are not properly represented. So, you know, I sat down, rolled up my sleeve and thought, how complicated can it be to build a new system really fulfilling all the kind of dreams you could have as an academic for publishing? So what is that? First of all, community ownership, really not-for-profit operations, and infrastructure which is completely open and not held by some corporate entity, open access being inbuilt, authors being greatly respected, you know, holding the copyright on all of this. And most importantly, really focused on academic quality. I think very much that openness is a key resource for implementing quality in scientific publishing. So that's really what SciPost is kind of based on. In reality, SciPost is a complete publishing infrastructure. So it's a bit different from Episciences. It's not an overlay system. It's essentially like a parallel system to the existing publishers. It was started in the field of physics, but over the years, it's slowly starting to expand. We would like to expand in many other fields, given the resources. But we really view publishing as something that can be done most professionally by the people who are actually doing the publishing themselves, namely academics. So that's what SciPost is trying to achieve. The history is as follows. So it's about 9 years old by now. The publishing tempo, the growth tempo, has been sustained about 30% a year since the beginnings. At the moment, we're on somewhat more than 3,200 publications. To get a ballpark idea of the scale of these operations, if you compare it, for example, to Open Research Europe, we're about 3.5 times the size of this. And our focus on quality means that the content that you see on SciPost has really been, you know, peer-reviewed to almost the most excruciating standards that you'll find in the industry. We're very wedded to the idea of quality in that. SciPost itself as an infrastructure mostly hosts journals, some of which are listed here, but we also have an infrastructure built to generalize in different directions and different, you know, with different protocols. We have also hosted journals, which are journals that are editorially independent from the SciPost Foundation, but use all our editorial facilities. And we also have affiliate journals that piggyback on our financial information infrastructure that I'll talk to you about in a couple of minutes. So openness for quality, how does it work at SciPost? Essentially, the refereeing phase is open, namely the refereeing reports are visible online to the community before any decision is taken. All editorial decisions are taken by active professional scientists. Their assembly is called the Editorial College, and decisions are taken communally as well, so by voting of the college. So never does an individual editor have decisional power on any given submission. So we think that by this kind of openness and this verification at very many levels, we have possibly the most robust editorial procedure out there. As an example of applications, we're also developing new ways of publishing. So one of our latest journals is SciPost Physics Code Bases, which is dedicated to publishing in a real, you know, publication object, codes that are used for scientific work. So that gives recognition to this type of format in the community. So, for example, here you've got an example of all of these. So that's a recent development of the last about 3 years ago. We started that. How does SciPost essentially work on the business model? Well, like I say, SciPost adopts a completely suicidal business model where we totally decouple our publishing activities from any financial intervention that could be associated to that. So we evaluate everything editorially without thinking about the money whatsoever. However, once the publishing activities have taken place, we do contact the institutions that have benefited from these activities, namely the institutions named in author affiliations, for example, or funding agencies, and we inform them of the fact that these publishing activities have taken place benefiting their scientists. And then we essentially ask those institutions to sustain us in a kind of way which is sufficient for us to keep going. We have a business model that we call the PubFrax business model, which aims at a completely equitable distribution of the infrastructure costs for this. The idea is that we can associate a certain amount of expenditures on our side to each publication that we have. We just count our yearly budget divided by the number of publications. That gives us a ballpark figure. We associate that to a paper, and then we distribute that among authors and affiliations. It gives us, for every single individual academic organization, a ballpark amount that would be required from that organization in order to sustain our activities. So we make all this data open. We have an organizations list page that essentially lists every single organization that has benefited from our activities, so over like almost 1,300 by now throughout the world. And for each organization, you can see how many papers are associated, what the PubFrax are, and what that represents in terms of, you know, expenditures on our side, and how much money they've given us also through sponsorships over the years. So if you want to see all the details, just navigate to SciPost.org finances and also the list of sponsors, and you'll see a detailed rendering of all our financial related activities over the last few years. Now, I said this model was a suicidal business model, and this is essentially the situation in which we're in at the moment. We are really trying to convince academic institutions to sustain our services. Our per paper expenditures are much lower than the comparable things you'd pay. So for us, it's about 500 or 600 euros per paper for the full process. So only about 10% of the institutions that have benefited from our activities have given us any money whatsoever. So we are actually strangled by lack of resources that really curtails our growth and threatens our continued existence. So in that context, it was very important for us to be included in the SCOSS family. And we really hope that that essentially gives you a little bit more motivation to see how we do things and to consider supporting our mission on this. We're a very small team, 4 permanent people, 3 members of the foundation overseeing the activities here. We believe that the size of the team compared to the, if you want, the output that comes out of this demonstrates that an extremely efficient, streamlined, and much more affordable publishing system is possible. It, however, does have to be sustained. So thank you for your attention.
Hey,
Wonderful.
yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Yes, I'll turn it over to Olaf. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks. So yeah, thanks a lot for all these interesting presentation. And yeah, I think some of your infrastructures are quite complex, so it's really helpful to have that all, yeah, in a nutshell explained. Okay, so now we come to the questions and answers section. I think we have about 15 minutes left. And yeah, looking at the chat, and I see, yeah, there's one point from Miriam Kota. I understand about SciPost, so it's question to SciPost, reviewing process, but how about other SCOSS platforms, which are essentially publishing platforms, cover quality assurance, peer review processes? I am asking, agreeing with Jean-Sébastien, because the success of open publishing platforms primarily depends on ensuring the quality of publications. So the question is for quality assurance, and as I see it, is it's not about SciPost, but about the other 3. So maybe African Journals Online. I think, Ivy, can you answer that? Still muted?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
sorry,
yeah,
trying
okay.
to unmute. So looking at the question, they were asking about the reviewing process. We use the JPPS system at African Journals Online to ensure quality of the journals that we host. So I can share a link on what the JPPS system is all about, because it's quite detailed. And this is shared with the journals. Just hold on as I share the link in the chats, so that they can read more about it. But quality is quite critical to the work of AJOL, because of the background, particularly from developing contexts where I think the idea is that we don't have good quality being produced. So it's this has been really critical to what, in terms of our goal as AJOL, to produce quality. So the JPPS framework actually looks into ensuring quality, and we have a team that focuses on ensuring quality and assessing the journals that we bring onto the platform. So I'm just going to share a link to the JPPS framework.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Ivy. I think we can have a look. We have the link in the chat. And yeah, I would also like to ask the question to Episciences, to Raphaël. Maybe you can also answer that.
Yeah. So yes, of course, reviewing is really important, and of course, it's available on the platform. We provide all the tools to invite reviewers, for instance, and do the reminders, of course, things like that. At the end of the process, you can see all the different versions that are online. So you can see between version 1, version 2, version 3, etc., that there has been work that has been conducted, and then you can see that the work of the reviewers actually adds value to the publication. So everything is available online on the open repository, so you can see all the differences. And if it's the choice of the journal, it's also possible to post the open peer review. It depends on the choices of the journals. You can have transparent, anonymous, or completely open peer reviews. It's up to the journals to decide that. But we like to provide also more tools to foster open peer review on the platform.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Raphaël. And then, yeah, I don't know, make data count, Iratxe, do you see quality assurance also as part of your service, or is it rather on another level?
I mean, we do care about quality in the sense that we, as I was mentioning, we do a lot of thinking and working with the community around the standards for making sure that the usage indicators can be compared and aggregated. But obviously, we are working on a slightly different ecosystem because we don't publish and we don't articles or even data sets ourselves. We are the infrastructure that helps collect the information from the data sets.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, then I also prepared a question to all of the 4 infrastructures. Yeah, today we are in a library context. It's a LIBER webinar, and you, part of you is of your presentation here is also looking for funding from libraries, of course. How do you see the connection between your services and academic libraries, and why should the library community support your services? And yeah, so this relation of your service to the library scene, maybe you can explain that a little bit. I mean, parts of it was already in the presentations, but maybe I'll go the other way around now and ask SciPost first. So Jean-Sébastien.
Thanks for the question. I mean, for us, it's very, very simple because links with libraries, it's our lifeblood, it's our lifeline. We cannot carry on without support from the libraries, because this is exactly what our suicidal business model is based on. It is based on you as librarians deciding how your money flows. It's about you looking at where your scientists publish. It's about you redistributing your budgets to the infrastructures that, while preserving quality, really, provide a replacement infrastructure for the corporate publishers who are siphoning off your budgets. And that's why our business model is so suicidal, because all our efforts are exclusively on the business side to save libraries money. However, in the current context, like I joke, you only notice APCs. You receive threatening invoices that you then pay. But if we don't send you an invoice, you don't notice us. And then we die. But each time we publish a paper, it's one less invoice that you're not getting from another corporate publisher. That would charge you essentially 5-7 times the amount anyway. So we don't charge anything, but we cannot carry on operating without this lifeblood. And I really emphasize that this is impossible for us because nobody else does that business model. It does not fit in the historical subscription-based model. It is the antithesis, the antidote to APCs. However, it is not sufficiently sustained. And I really emphasize this because we are literally 6 weeks away from bankruptcy. And, you know, so after 10 years of activity at SciPost and really having delivered so much, in this situation really underlines the failure of the academic side to fund the replacement infrastructure for the incumbent publishers. So, you know, we are nothing without you, without the libraries throughout the world. We provide all the data you might possibly need to look at the value of the activities and how you can make it work. But we might not be around for much longer if you don't act.
Thanks. But that means when you reach out to the institutions of your authors, do you directly go to the library on the campus, or who do you contact?
We contact librarians, essentially. So anybody who's got a statement about open access, people who are responsible for journal collections and things like that. If we don't know, of course, our main point of contact are the authors from these institutions who might end up having some knowledge of who's responsible for these things. But the library is always our point of contact. We don't want to deal with anybody else. It's librarians, you know. We want to be viewed as part of the library style infrastructure, if you want.
Thanks. So that was really helpful to understand.
Thank you.
So then second would be Iratxe for make data count. How do you see your relation to libraries?
I mean, for us, I see libraries as a key piece in the data ecosystem, and we have a lot of librarians in our community and engage with our working groups, etc. I mentioned, for example, the one we have in collaboration with Helios Open. But I see librarians are key because they really touch upon every aspect of the data activities at the institutions. They are doing training and support for data management, data policy compliance, or helping researchers go through that. They are often involved with the local repositories or portals for open data, and that's where they want to understand what's the impact of those repositories. I mean, essentially, as I was mentioning, we develop the infrastructure and practices to help gather that information so that they are interested in understanding that and what they can collect through that. And they are also key in terms of reporting on open science practices, and again, where do the data sets go, and what happens with that, and informing the evaluation processes at the institution. So for us, they are a key partner, and they are great in doing advocacy around open data, but also understanding that we need to go beyond just sharing. They want to understand what happens with this, with the evidence that we can capture on our impact, on their own work, on supporting those practices.
And that means we also contact libraries directly.
We have been in touch with libraries directly as well in terms of the participation in a SCOSS, again, financial support if they're able to do that, but otherwise often as part of our engagement activities for our working groups, the feedback that we gather, they are often engaged.
Thanks a lot. And then for Episciences, Raphaël, what's your turn in relation to libraries?
Well, I agree to what has been said before, of course. Actually, I was also a librarian for the university, so it's really important for us, and I agree it's really important. Also, would like to highlight that it's also interesting for us to build new relations and new connections with libraries, for instance, especially when it comes to supporting new repositories, and also inviting researchers to contact us, for instance, to flip commercial journals. Because when you flip a journal from the commercial publisher to a diamond open access publisher such as us, it means that you are creating a common good with public money. So
Mhm.
you are investing in public resources and public money into creating new public goods. So it's
Mhm.
also an opportunity, yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. And then last but not least, African Journals Online. Ivy, what's your take on libraries?
Library is an important stakeholder for AJOL as well. We are a link to journals, and we actually appreciate suggestions from librarians of journals to include on our website that are not already there and that comply with our criteria for inclusion. So they are an important link in order to ensure we get quality journals that they feel are not already included. So yes, we find them to be very important.
Okay.
So
And you're also in direct touch, in direct contact with libraries.
yes, we are.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks. And then I've seen now we have like a few more inputs in the chat. So Julia Katharina Nair, she's writing, what are some creative ways we libraries could foster a stronger sense of community around open science here in Innsbruck, Austria, perhaps through regular meetings, workshops, or online platforms. So that is actually more a comment towards the library community here. So this is, of course, something we could also take back to the LIBER Open Access Working Group. So thanks for your input, Julia. So it's really helpful. So yeah, we have a meeting in a few weeks, so I can take this with me to think how we can support here. And then there's also an input from Jean-Sébastien. I would personally recommend installing some open publishing support systems, mirroring, e.g. the University of Amsterdam Diamond Open Access Funds. In short, support those academics that do turn open publishing into reality. Yeah, this is also a good idea. I know that some libraries actually have installed that. I know that, for example, I think in Leuven and also in other universities have also like Diamond open access funds. So, and we also within LIBER and in the open access working group, we also promote this idea. So that's definitely something to go for, to support that. So thanks for the input. And yeah, looking at the clock is already 5 o'clock. So thanks everyone for all these interesting input and yeah, also explaining your service to us. So that's really helpful. And also, Rosalie, thanks for explaining what SCOSS is all about and how you support open science infrastructures.
Thank LIBER again for hosting this, for all of you and your time, for coming to listen. And please, please reach out if you have any questions.
And I think also, Rosalie, we should also pronounce it that we have the survey, the SCOSS survey. Yeah, maybe that everybody who has taken part here today, please complete the short survey on if you support one of the infrastructures of this year from SCOSS, or if you are not supporting it, why you're not supporting it. And yeah, and then you also see on the last slide that under this URL, you can find this webinar, I think next week or so, on the YouTube channel of LIBER.